Hey everybody, this is Anthony from They Call This a Movie, and I just wanted to let you know that we will be partnering with our friends from the Game Vault podcast to host our 6th annual Extra Life video game marathon. Starting at 9 a.m. Eastern Standard Time on Saturday, November 13th, we'll be streaming for 24 hours straight on the Game Vault podcast Twitch channel to benefit the Children's Hospital of Philadelphia. We'd love for you to join in the fun by checking it out on twitch.tv/GameVaultPod, and if you can, please feel free to donate at tinyurl Mark Hates Art. We hope to see you there. Thanks.
A great classic comes to the screen.
Take thy hand, fair prince.
Who said I'm fair? To be or not to be? Not to be.
Columbia Pictures is proud to present the screen's greatest action hero, Jack Slater.
Don't even think it, Slater, you hear me?
This is the Lieutenant Governor.
Slater, here's what The governor gets here, call me.
And Danny Madigan is his biggest fan.
Jack Slater 4.
But tonight, a magic ticket
It's a passport to another world.
will get Danny closer to the action than anyone ever dreamed.
Holy cow! I'm in the movie!
Who the hell are you?
Don't shoot me! I'm Danny Madigan, I'm a kid.
And you're going with him
Who is this twerp, and where is that smile on his face?
I don't even know these kids.
to a world that's bigger than life
This ticket is magic, and it really works.
and better than real.
You really believe that you're inside a movie, don't you?
Yes! The bad guys are in there. I've seen it. On screen.
Could I speak to the drug dealer of the house, please? Have a nice day.
Have him killed.
This summer, it's head-on thrills,
I have killed people smarter and younger than you.
head-first excitement,
I hate when it happens.
He's got the ticket!
Now I possess power. Real power.
He's going over to my world!
In this world, the bad guys can win.
The door must still be open, come on!
If I go, how do I get back?
and it's coming at you from both sides of the screen.
Where am I now?
This isn't the movies anymore, Jack. Please be careful. Things were different here.
Damn it, that hurt.
Arnold Schwarzenegger is Jack Slater,
This hero stuff has its limits.
and Jack Slater is
Everybody down! Now!
the last action hero. The big ticket for '93.
I'll be back. Ha! You did not gonna say that, did you?
That's what you always say.
I do?
Welcome to They Call This a Movie, testing the strength of friendships one terrible movie at a time. Subscribe to the podcast on iTunes and other podcast services by searching They Call This a Movie. We are part of the Main Damie Network. To find more from us, check out the website, themaindamie.com, or on Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram at The Main Damie. We're also now a proud member of Geek Vibes Nation. You can find them at gvnation.com. Welcome back to They Call This a Movie. This is Anthony Delvecchio. With me, as always, is Dan Aquino and Mark Meyer. Say hello, gentlemen.
Hey guys, how's it going?
Hey, how you doing? We were having a discussion beforehand about Planet Hollywoods, and it just made me think all the stuff growing up, like around this movie, in terms of like Planet Hollywood, and is Hard Rock Cafe still a big thing? Like, are these just things from my childhood that I think are still really around, but are not? I don't know. This movie made me think about it a lot because there was a lot of references to a time period when we were like 9, 10 years old here.
Sure.
I think they're around, but they're not a thing.
Yeah.
I don't know how they're still around though. Right? We were trying to figure out how is that even possible.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't have the answer for it.
Well, because if you think about it, like rock and roll is like dead essentially, right? So if any kid now goes to a rock and roll one of those cafes, they're not going to understand any of the memorabilia that's there. This is John Lennon's glasses. Who? What? What's the significance? Like
oh, the guy that beat his wife.
like they're going to be looking for like I don't even know. I was going to try to think of a current artist. I would have just embarrassed myself.
Harry Styles' Dorothy dress that he wore on Halloween.
Yeah, why not? Where's that?
Yeah, the drummer from Def Leppard's right arm.
They have it preserved. They got it from the car crash.
I'm not even sure it's the right or the left, but
yeah. It
50-50
also makes
shot.
me sad that kids would have no idea what the video store was that he walks into in this movie either.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
I feel like there is far too much nostalgia glasses for video stores, especially those big ones
Yeah.
going on right now. It's like it wasn't that fun.
Yeah.
Everyone imagines the blockbuster from the commercials,
Yeah.
but 9 times out of 10, the movie that you wanted wasn't there, so you had to settle for some direct-to-video Ray Liotta movie.
That's true.
Well, I think it was fun in the right circumstance. Like if you were having like a sleepover,
It was fun because we were kids. Really,
Yeah.
we just missed the fact that we're not children anymore. Really, more than anything.
We're jaded assholes, essentially. Is that what you're? Yeah, 100%.
Yeah.
But I'm not clamoring to get those stores back, to be honest.
It's like the old joke about the fast food places that the fast food places morphed from happy kids to depressed adults, just like us.
Right,
yeah, they become like super corporate looking.
Yeah. But besides that, and our lives of unfulfilled dreams and our wishes to go back to childhood, what did you guys watch this week? Anything?
Yeah, I watched the new Dune on the way that Dennis Villanueva wanted me to, in my robe, in my house, on my flat screen TV, not at the theaters. So I apologize, but that was fine. I thought it was way better than the original, and it was more concise.
It was directed by
Finch. That guy, my man Finch.
So close.
Lynch, David Lynch.
There we go.
Yeah, I'll get it one day. I'm never gonna get it. They're so close. If it's their fault that I don't get it. All right.
Yeah.
They shouldn't be that close together.
In 15 years, it goes to be a director named David Lyncher.
Yeah, come on, man. This is it's too hard. What am I supposed to do? So I saw the new Dune movie. I liked it. It was, oh man, it's a slow burn for sure. But it's more concise. I felt like the original Dune, it kind of throws you in. It's as if you just started watching Game of Thrones in like season 5, and they just tell you, all right, yeah, figure it out. They're naming all of these houses and the intergalactic like treaties and all that. So it's a lot to take in, but visually it's amazing. Acting is good. I enjoy the acting for the most part. I'm not super excited for the second chapter, but I will see it.
Okay.
So it was a good movie. I would recommend you guys watching it if you haven't already. And then Sunday I saw the Eternals, Marvel's Eternals, and I gotta tell you, have you guys seen the Rotten Tomato score and all that?
I know it's the lowest Rotten Tomato score of any Marvel movie.
Yeah, I think last I checked, it was at 48% or 49%. Like I think that's worse than Thor 2: The Dark World.
Mm-hmm.
I have no idea why. No idea why. It's not great, but it's nowhere near as bad as Thor 2, and it's a joke that it's that low. Again, visually, it's the best shot Marvel movie I think so far.
Cool.
And not that it's saying a whole lot, because obviously there's a lot of green screen, CGI effects. This movie takes full advantage of its scenery. It does that perfectly. It's a lot of fun. I think there was some miscasting. I didn't really enjoy Angelina Jolie in this movie. Kind of watered her down a little bit. They tried to stuff a lot of movie into this. Mm-hmm. Essentially, the Eternals have been around for 7,000 years. So they're trying to stuff 7,000 years of history into a 2.5-hour movie. So it feels a little bloated.
Gotcha.
Pacing is a little off every now and then. But I thought the story was good. It had good heart to it. It's not your typical Marvel movie, and maybe that's why critics were not clamoring over it. I I think it kind of suffers a little bit from the Hobbit, like the Hobbit movies, where if I asked you to name me a bunch of the dwarves that were in Thorin's company, probably have a hard time doing it. Or super stand out. Basically, it's a solid movie. I would say probably 7 out of 10. To me, it's better than a lot of the standalone movies.
Okay.
Doctor Strange, Captain Marvel, first two Thor movies, first Captain America movie. So I don't have a definitive listing for it, but I would recommend seeing it. I thought it was pretty good. It's a little long. The end credit scenes are really cool. So it definitely sets up for something awesome. But yeah, if you're on the fence about seeing it, I would recommend it. Kind of make your own judgment, but it definitely does not deserve a 48%.
Okay. All right. Mark, what did you not watch this week?
Thought about watching Dune.
So what I said, did that help at all?
No, I actually do want to watch it. It's more the length of it that I was trying to fit into, preparing for Extra Life this weekend and the D&D session we do.
Sure.
That's what they all say. It's the length of it that's the problem.
Yeah, the girth is what you want.
Yeah,
Right.
I just didn't have enough girth to watch Dune. But yeah, so no, I did think about that, and I have a passing interest in the Spencer movie more so as a excuse to do something, get my mother out of the house sort of thing, but not anything where if she doesn't want to go to the movies, I'll just wait for it to come to streaming. But yeah, I don't think there's anything. I think last night in Soho might have been until Spider-Man might be the last thing that I absolutely want to see in theaters coming up. So
Okay.
we'll see if I can find anything on streaming. But as you know, I don't watch as many movies as you guys do.
Gotcha. As for me, I watched a couple of things. I watched first The Harder They Fall, which is the new Netflix Western that I really liked. Great cast. It's got Jonathan Majors, who was in Loki, I believe he was in, as well as he was in The Lovecraft Country. He's the lead. And Zazie Beats? Zazie? I'm going to say Zazie.
I would say
From-
Zazie Beats, but
Zazie?
yeah, that's what I say. But I'm not, me. I'm not great at pronunciation or saying words correctly.
She's in it. Lakeith Steinfeld is in it. Idris Elba is in it. Regina King. All minority cast, basically. Really well done. A bit long, though. It's about 2 hours and 10 minutes, which is what this movie was that we watched this week. And there's like specific parts where it's like, all right, well, this is a part that would lift right out, and you would cut 10 minutes out. It looks cool. It's got a little Tarantino in it. It's got a little spaghetti western to it. It's very stylish and it's fun. It's just a fun time. I enjoyed it. But again, it probably could have been about 15, 20 minutes shorter, and I would have liked it a lot more. So I watched that, and then I watched Dave Chappelle's The Closer. So I've been kind of avoiding it and trying to think how I think about it. There's a TikTok I saw that kind of it summed it up pretty well. And he's like, and the guys basically said, imagine if I was a stand-up comedian and I had a special where I talked for 5 minutes about pickles. And then the next stand-up special, I came back and I talked about 15 minutes about pickles. And the next stand-up special, I came back and I talked for 37 minutes about pickles. After a while, you would say, this guy is talking too much about pickles. He's got to think of some... He's just talking too much about pickles. He needs to move on. And that's kind of how I feel about Dave Chappelle. I think he's a very smart guy. He's he chooses his words properly, like well. He's a very smart guy, and he is able to tell a very interesting story. But 37 minutes of this whole special, and there are people that can talk about this better than I can, is all about his relationship with the trans community. And it's just like, I'm over it. I really want him to stop talking. Like, if you guys had a really terrible take about something, I would ask you to stop bringing it up. It's like, I'm not going to try and change your mind, but just stop bringing it up. And that's kind of how I feel with Dave Chappelle. I still like Dave Chappelle. I think he's still one of the best comedians of all time. It's just he needs to move on and stop talking about trans people, because his take is terrible. It's not a good take, and I'm not going to go into why I think it's a terrible take, because like I said, coming as a heterosexual white man, I don't really feel like it's my place to talk about black man talking about the at odds he feels the black community is with trans people. So it's not my place. But yeah, just stop talking about it. I'd love to watch an entire hour and 20-minute Dave Chappelle special where it doesn't come up. Yeah, I'm waiting for that. So that's my take on it.
Yeah.
Really. I don't know if you guys watched it, if you have any interest in watching it.
No, I haven't seen it. I figured it. I think it's been overshadowed, and I wouldn't be able to focus on anything else. I don't know if that's all he talks about in it, but I think you said it's about of the special, right?
It's about half of it.
Okay, so I wouldn't be able to really focus on the other half of it because I would just know what's coming.
Mhm.
You know, so I'm like, I don't need to see it. I still like Dave Chappelle because I agree. I think he's a phenomenal storyteller. Probably one of the better ones in the business. But yeah, I don't need to hear that. I'm good.
I think what I'm saying is find a new slant I
Sure.
think what I'm saying.
I'm not a fan of, obviously as a minority, and he kind of talks about how rough they have it, and like just because X has it rough doesn't make it okay that you could talk about Y not having it rough or as rough.
Right.
So yeah, I think he's in the wrong on this one. But yeah, like you, I would probably see him live, or I will probably apparently his movie Untitled is supposed to be pretty good. If I had a chance to see that on streaming or something, I'd probably watch it. But
yeah,
this is just it's just, I think it's shock for shock value in a way.
It doesn't really come off that way. It comes off as he's trying to explain himself and why he feels what he does, but it feels like he's talking out of both sides of his mouth about it.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
Because he still wants to go for the cheap joke, like, "Oh, that woman's got a dick,"
right?
And then was like, "Well, I feel like I could say that because of this,
because I'm
and
black."
And then he kind of props up. He tells a story, and it's a really it's a touching story about a trans woman that he befriended. Who
is that? Daphne.
Daphne, and it's a very touching story. But it's like this kind of feels like a white person saying, "How could I be racist? This is my black friend."
Yeah, that I did hear that.
There's a little bit of there's a little bit of tokenism to it.
Okay,
but like I said, I just want him to be over it. I want him to move past this, and maybe that's it. I felt like this was the final say he was going to say in a special. He also it was okay. It's not killing him softly. Nowhere near killing him softly.
Yeah,
which I think is one of the best comedy specials ever. And that's kind of what I want. Like I want him to spend time doing jokes like that. But I mean, like I said, he's a smart guy, and his stuff that short little video that came out like right after the George Floyd murder was like pretty profound, and like he's a pretty smart guy, and he's able to express himself very well through his words. It's just you're just not right about the things you're saying on this particular issue, and just move on, man. Just move on, really.
Yeah, I hear you.
Yeah, but yeah, that's all I watched this week. Watched 2 interesting things, one better than the other. But yeah, if you have a chance, if you have 2 hours and 10 minutes, the harder they fall is pretty good. It's fun. And that's all we watched this week. So we're gonna take a quick break, and you guys are gonna listen to some ads so we can pay those bills, and we'll be right back. And welcome back. Now it's time to get into this week's movie, and this week was Mark's pick. So Mark, why don't you tell us which movie you picked for us this week?
Yeah, so I picked Last Action Hero. It's one of those movies that I've seen a few times. I did it for an old blog post series that I was doing almost a decade ago at this point. The main thing I like about it is if you don't know from listening to our D&D podcast, if you've listened to that, is I get a good kick out of a good reference, and there's a whole bunch of parody, satire, whatever you want to call it, of action movie references in this, and movie references in general. So I enjoyed it the first couple times I watched it, on this watching, and maybe it was because I knew I had to squeeze it in before we started recording. It felt really longer and boring to me than it did in the past. Maybe because I knew all the beats and we're just trying to get through it to make sure I didn't forget anything. But I think for your first time viewing it, or if you're really into action movies, I think the movie still plays well. Arnold's as charming as ever in this, and yeah, they hit all the good tropes correctly throughout when he's in the movie world, and it's always nice to see like random relics from the mid-90s, like with the aforementioned video store that's in there. Having both, I believe it's Bobby Brown and Angie Everhart in the in that video store scene, and just going, oh right, that would have been a pretty cool cameo back then, and yeah, I think a lot of that stuff is just great, and the fact that I think Stallone looks really good on that T2 poster, and I think they could have completely made that movie. It would have been good. But yeah, that's the main reason I picked it. I thought it'd be a fun movie that we can pick apart, and have some good fun with, but not be a terrible slog to get through.
Okay, great. And Dan, where are you coming from with Last Action Hero?
I have seen this movie plenty of times. I want to say around close to 10. I would say this is a good movie to have on in the background if you're just kind of looking for something, can't make up your mind. Last Action Hero's on. I'll watch it. I saw this movie when it first came out with my dad, and I remember having so much fun watching this, and the two of us just goofing on it. Essentially, it was good to watch with him. So I have very fond memories of this movie, and just how it's so tongue in cheek, how it doesn't take itself seriously. I love when Arnold is trying to trick Danny into like, oh, you wouldn't expect me to do that, would you? Because he's trying to show him that it's not a movie. Yeah. Like, oh, you wouldn't expect me to say this. And yeah, how it touches on all the tropes. That's great. It definitely, I guess it's like the airplane of action movie. And
yeah, that's might be a good way to put it.
Yeah, I love it. Charles Dance, so much fun, such a great villain. Like, this guy was born to be evil. He's awesome in it. I love Charles Dance. I was hoping he would say like something with the word king in it, because when he was in Game of Thrones, anytime he said the word king, it was so menacing and it was awesome. And even he was in Godzilla, King of the Monsters, he has that line, "Long live the king." Fuck yeah, man, you rock, Charles Dance. I love you. He's good. It's so much fun. I would want everyone should see this movie, I think.
Okay. As for me, I don't remember the first time I've seen it. I probably saw it when I was a kid, and then I kind of just hadn't seen it in a while until I was older and probably watched it on Netflix. This movie's super ahead of its time. It's gotten a bad reputation for God knows why. I just think people weren't ready for Schwarzenegger to have such a meta movie this early in his career, I suppose. It's great. Charles Dance is so good in this movie. Is like easily the most underrated villain in action movies. Although I would like their first choice was Alan Rickman. Would have loved to see that, but I think Charles Dance does a fantastic job. The references are great. I want to see Jack Slater 1 through 4. I want to see those movies. Gosh, it's great. It's such a fun, like, people at the top of their game that have done action movies. So it's like John McTiernan, director of Predator as well as Die Hard and many others. Shane Black is the writer on this, and Arnold Schwarzenegger. All of them just in their heyday, just coming together. And it's like, why don't we poke fun at the movies we've already made? Yeah, it's so good. The cameos, seeing those glimpses of like Robert Patrick come out of the police department, or Sharon Stone is a blink and you miss it cameo coming out of the police department. Such clever little nods and just the small details and everything, like the driving scenes. Like there's one scene where they're talking while they're driving, and it's a non-scene. It's just like it's basically a scene that exists to get from one place to another. and Schwarzenegger's talking to the kid, but like on the in the background, you see he's running people off the road because he's just like he's all over the road, but it's just like this calm, nondescript scene. But because that's the way they make movies, of like they're all over the road, just everybody's just crashing behind them. It's hilarious. It's perfect. This is like the cinema paradiso of action movies, like where the movie comes alive. It's wonderful.
I thought the best part, like, you know how this movie is actually really good because it made Jim Belushi funny for like 2 seconds. That's how like the writing is so good in this, right? Because they're at the premiere of the new Jack Slater film, and they're talking to Jim. I don't know why Jim Belushi would have been there to begin with, but I guess because right in the '90s he was still kind of around. He was a little bit of a thing.
Yeah, does he not have? He's got to have a movie with Schwarzenegger, no?
He might like he probably has like a kid comedy, right?
Red Heat. He was in Red Heat with Schwarzenegger. I think Schwarzenegger called in favors because I think they said because the thing with Sharon Stone was they famously did not get along on Total Recall.
Oh, Total Recall, that's right.
But he was like, "Well, yeah, sure, maybe you don't like me, but that also propelled your career, so you kind of owe me."
I love they're talking to Belushi, and what does he say? He's like, "Oh, I hate Arnold, but my wife loves him, turns her on, and I just like to be there when that happens."
Yeah,
it's just again like these little quips. Man, it was funny and kind of sad to see MC Hammer in it.
Yeah, that's the one that does not hold up, right?
No, right? Because it's like he's begging, like, "Hey, we're good for the job, right, dude?" Like, was that in the movie, or did he just slip into the studio? Like, Arnold, I need this man. Come on,
Yeah,
help me out.
There's no universe where Jack Slater 5 had an MC Hammer song on it.
No. Yeah. Ian McClellan is in it. Who would I was looking at Gandalf as a kid. How cool is that? I didn't know. No one could know that, obviously. It's such a good cast.
And not to take what I said. I actually absolutely love this movie as much as Ant did. I think it was more the watching this for the purpose of a podcast made it, not as enjoyable of a watch as I've had in the past. I don't know if that makes sense. I just want to make that clear. That
it was more work than pleasure.
Yeah. I think it's a great movie, and I've watched it just like you said, Dan. Just at times of when nothing else was on, when I used to have cable. Just put it on and watch it. But yeah, everything, all the little cameos are great. I think it's inspired casting to put Danny DeVito voicing any cartoon animals, because it just comes through great. Because he's essentially a cartoon character himself.
Right. Yeah. The connection with twins. There you go.
Yeah. There you go. Yeah.
Yeah, I think just about every one of the slight cameos or things like that, as you had mentioned, Dan, I think they may have all been in a movie with him.
I can't figure out the Chevy Chase connection. That's the one.
Yeah. That's a. And was he in a movie with Damon Wayans?
No, but I think Damon Wayans was in Last Boy Scout, which was a Shane Black.
Yeah.
Okay. So maybe it has something to do with Shane Black or one of the other writers.
It's probably like John. Yeah. It's probably somewhere between John McTiernan and Shane Black.
Yeah. Very, very possible.
And I also, this was probably just more for me laughing, but the fact that at the premiere when he's going around telling Maria Shriver who all the journalists are and who not to talk to, and I'm like, she's Maria Shriver, like she would know this stuff.
Yeah, that was pretty cool to see that, because I had forgotten that they were married at one point, and now I see her constantly. Just like, she haunts my dreams. I close my eyes. There's Maria Shriver.
Yeah. I love when Schwarzenegger says California, just from his California, just from his days as the governor, and he says it like a couple of times in this one. I just get a kick out of every time he says California.
Just all the digs at Arnold were great. Just the thing about "I'll be back." They try to see. They're looking for you to put it into every movie. It's like your calling card now.
Yeah, people just wait for you to say it. So my wife had a question.
Right.
So there's a scene in the real world where Slater's character says rubber baby buggy bumpers. And she was like, "Oh, where have I heard that before? That's from a movie, right?" I don't think so. I think it's just like a saying. It's not from a movie, right? It's just a
No,
saying.
I think it's just like a vocal warm up exercise.
Okay. She couldn't
Yeah,
figure it out, and then I guess she Googled it. It's like,
it's like a
oh,
tongue
Last Action
twister.
Hero.
Rubber baby buggy bumpers. Yeah, it's a tongue twister.
God, imagine saying that with that accent. He deserves an Oscar for that because that's
He's-
incredible.
Take 5.
He's really good in this. Like
He
there's
is.
moments where he has like existential crisis of coming to terms with the fact that he's a fictional character. That's like the most acting up until this point that Arnold has had to do.
That's a good point, right? When he's like, "Yeah, just kill my kid. It's fine. I'm a fictional character. It doesn't give me nightmares for the rest of my life." Like, holy shit, that's pretty interesting, right?
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
do these fictional characters carry the weight of what goes on in their movies?
Yeah, it's like the moment when he shoots the guy in the closet in his apartment, and just the way he says, "There's always a guy."
Yeah, spend a fortune on closet doors.
And then and I love that little detail when he opens it and it's the same outfit on every single hanger with the same gun in every holster.
Yeah,
He just
And
trades one out and picks up
Yeah.
another one.
he takes the jacket off, puts it down, and just
It's
takes it.
it's cool because honestly, and I think we'll get into this as we continue the review. There's not much of a weak spot in this movie.
No,
You know, if you
I
want to
think
say
this is one of
Danny,
his-
maybe.
yeah.
But yeah,
Kids are kind of like they're hit or miss really when it comes to kid
yeah,
actors.
sure. And yeah, I think it's a perfect spoof of action movies. It's a compelling story. It's an interesting twist. Yeah, and like the characters are fleshed out, right?
Mhm.
I was not when I first saw this, and tonight when I watched it last, I was not bored at all. I was cackling at so many stupid parts. I could tell my wife, "Hey, watch this part." There's a scene, I think about it constantly, where Charles Dance is in the real world and he kills someone to test a theory, and he was like, "I shot a man and I want to confess. Shut up down there." Like, I think about that line just like sporadically. I'll be sitting there just like, "I shot someone. Shut up down there." It's so good.
It's great. He's so good. He's got such great lines too. Like if God were a villain, he'd be me. Such a good
Yeah,
line.
that's cocky as hell.
And for some reason, I get a kick every time I watch this movie out of the way Arnold delivers. He's my favorite second cousin.
Yes, it's always the second cousin.
We also
Anytime he's
can't
talking about him.
we also can't forget that Al Leong is
Yeah.
is in this movie again.
Yes, killed by the ice cream cone.
He got
I think-
iced to
Yes, I
coin
was
a
just-
phrase.
I was say I think he got his own witty one-liner.
So, Last Action Hero from 1993 is directed by John McTiernan, who also directed Predator, The Hunt for Red October, Die Hard, and Die Hard with a Vengeance, as among many others. Stars Arnold Schwarzenegger, Charles Dance, Frank McRae, Austin O'Brien, Art Carney, Mercedes Rule, Tom Noonan, Robert Prosky, Anthony Quinn, among many cameos. IMDb score of 6.4 and a Rotten Tomato score of 40%. Budget $85 million. Box office $50 million domestically, 137 globally. So it did not make too much money in US box office. That's probably why there wasn't a Last Action Hero 2, which I totally would have enjoyed seeing a second one. But yeah, that's it. You guys want to get into the plot?
Let's do it.
I think you were right earlier with the movie that was ahead of its time.
Yeah. It's also a little bit too, but
Yeah.
that's it. Okay, Dan, what do you got for us this week?
All right. So I think I've been saying this wrong constantly, and I sincerely apologize to our good friends Tia and Brittany, because I've been calling it Tea Time with Tia. I don't think that's what it is. I think it's like Coffee Break with Tia. I'm trying to look it up now. I feel so.
Did
so
you just
terrible.
give him a name for their new show?
Right, because it flowed, right? Tea Time
Yeah.
with Tia. It's like, fuck yeah, that sounds awesome. But That's not it. Because I saw it on YouTube the other day. I was like, shit, I've been calling you crab apple. No, so I apologize to Tia and Brittany, but they have their own podcast. It's on Geek Vibes Nation, gvnation.com. Tia and Brittany getting together, talking about random subjects, pop culture related. Give them a listen. Go check them out. Rate and review them on iTunes or wherever you get your podcasts from. Brittany also streams on twitch.tv / itty bitty Brit. She streams a variety of games. She's a phenomenal streamer. They are great people. So go listen to their podcast. Go watch her stream. They're great. You will not regret it.
Okay, great. And we are going to take a quick break, and you guys are going to listen to some messages from friends of the podcast. So we'll be right back.
Hey everyone, this is Steve.
And this is Adam.
And we're part of the Hop Nation USA podcast,
Pittsburgh's #3 craft beer podcast.
Join us every Friday for new beer reviews.
We'll talk about the news, history, and homebrewing.
Plus, we'll sit down with the best brewers and industry personalities that'll have us.
So whether you're a casual drinker, a hazy boy hophead,
or even if you're a whale hunting cellar hoarder,
just search Hop Nation USA on Apple, Spotify, or your favorite podcatcher and join the nation.
Oh, hi. Didn't see you there. It's me, George, from the best little horror house in Philly, the show where we talk about the best horror movie ever made, according to our guest at least. We've talked about groundbreaking classics like Texas Chainsaw Massacre and Alien, but we've also got a lot of great ones coming up, including some very fun guests like Len Kabaczynski of Swamp Zombies and Red Letter Media fame, Caroline Williams, the star of Texas Chainsaw Massacre 2, and Chase Williamson from John Dies at the End. So make sure you're subscribed to the best little horror house in Philly, and I'll see you boils and ghouls over there.
And welcome back. Now it's time to get into the plot for Last Action Hero. We open on a hostage situation akin to Die Hard. Basically, every cop in Los Angeles is there, with someone named the Ripper on the roof of an elementary school, and during Christmas time, no less. So, Slater 3 is a Christmas movie. The Ripper, despite the numbers against him, has the upper hand as he manages to kill a SWAT sniper and toss him off the roof with very little fanfare. But then, walking across the roofs of the police cruisers in a pair of cowboy boots and general 80s, 90s badass dress is Jack Slater, played by Arnold Schwarzenegger. Jack's a loose cannon, and even though the police chief tells him that this negotiation is not his job, Jack doesn't listen to him and goes to make his way to the roof and punches out the lieutenant governor in the process just because he's not the actual governor, right in front of the mayor, played by Tina Turner.
Yep.
I'd like to see him try and do that shit with John Fetterman.
Yeah.
Wait, now or when he was Jack Slater?
Now. Well,
Okay.
either, I guess. John Fetterman now, Jack Slater then.
I think that would be an even matchup.
Yeah, that'd be even. He also gives a SWAT guy tapped with trying to stop him a quote-unquote couple of acres and kicks him into the sun.
Is that a real saying when you kick somebody?
I've never heard it before. I think it means like oh, your two nuts are acres. They ache. I think that's what that meant.
Oh, wow, that's fucking meta.
Yeah. So Jack makes it to the roof, and it turns out that among all the school children being taken hostage, Jack's own son is as well. The Ripper tells Jack to get rid of all his weapons. At first, Jack drops a single gun, but then is prodded and then drops about a full arsenal's worth of guns and knives, which is a great joke. Jack then tosses a live grenade, quote unquote, at the feet of the Ripper. The Ripper calls his bluff, assuming that Jack would never put his own child in danger in such a manner. Ripper tells Jack's son to pick up the grenade, and to no surprise, it's not a grenade. It is, however, a switchblade, which Jack's son uses and stabs the Ripper. Jack shoots at the Ripper, hitting him in the chest. Then the Ripper falls over the side, taking the kid with him. And at about that time, we realize we were watching a movie within a movie, and one in which the projector has gone out of focus. So our hero kid, Danny, walks out into the lobby of what can only be described as a flophouse movie theater, and makes his way up to the projectionist booth to wake up Nick, the old man that runs the theater. Nick wakes up and adjusts the projector just as the credits roll. Danny isn't too worried. It's an older Jack Slater movie that he's seen a bunch of times before, but Nick tells him that he's getting an advanced copy of the brand new Jack Slater 4 film, and that Danny can come by tonight and watch it with him.
If this movie theater, if by the end of it, you get the notion that the movie theater is closing down, how is he still getting advanced copies of movies?
I do not know.
Good question.
Maybe he had to pay an arm and a leg for it, and that's
Yeah.
why he's gonna close.
Oops.
Danny then runs off to school, which is where he's supposed to be the entire time. And in his class, his teacher is talking about Hamlet, and then shows the class a clip from the Laurence Olivier stage play version, specifically the scene where Hamlet considers killing his uncle Claudius. Danny is bored and demands Hamlet be a man of action, so he imagines Jack Slater as Hamlet kicking his ass and taking some names. And at
I'd also
home,
watch that movie.
I would too. Yep.
Yeah.
At home, Danny's mom gets a call telling her that Danny was sick today, and she tells him he needs to go to school and basically stop being a burden to her because she's a single mom now that his dad has passed away. She says this in the nicest of terms. So she goes to work, and at some point in the night, some tweaker breaks into the apartment and holds Danny at knife point. He handcuffs Danny to the sink and ransacks the apartment looking for anything to sell for drug money. After the ordeal, Danny goes to the police station and files a report, but the cops seem to plan to be doing dick all about it.
New York.
Hey, cab. Danny makes his way to the theater late, but luckily Nick was waiting for him and gives him a special ticket. It's a magic ticket given to him by Houdini or something. I don't even. The movie begins with mob boss Vivaldi trying to get information out of Frank, Jack Slater's second cousin, played by Art Carney,
No,
and his
I'm sorry, Aunt. His favorite second cousin.
And his hitman Benedict, played by Charles Dance, is also there. Later, a couple of cops get ready to serve a drug warrant at a house that doesn't seem to be a drug house. Jack shows up with groceries, saying that it's not a drug house. It's his favorite second cousin's Frank's house, and he's not a drug dealer. So Jack opens his door and finds Frank tied to a chair. Before he dies, Frank tells Jack that Vivaldi and another mob boss are joining forces. And Jack finds a note addressed to him and then realizes it's a countdown to a bomb. He runs out of the house just as it explodes, leaving Jack with minor injuries, but the other cops are dead, one of which was 2 days away from retirement.
This scene has so many good parts. It has when Frank dies, his last words are so cool. I'm out of here. God, that's awesome. That's an awesome way to go out. I'm out of here. That's how I want to die. I'm out of here. And then Danny calling the play-by-play. It's fine. Minor wounds. Both cops are dead. Yeah, like this gigantic explosion. The action star walks away, no problem. Everyone else is like blown to pieces.
Yeah. After he dusts himself off, Jack sees a car filled with machine gun wielding henchmen coming around the corner, including Al Leong. And a car chase ensues with the goons chasing after Jack in his convertible. They exchange gunfire. One of the henchmen throws a bundle of dynamite at Jack's car. Dynamite rolls off the car and magically into the theater. Danny sees it and runs towards the movie screen as the dynamite explodes, and when the dust clears, Danny finds himself in the backseat of Jack's convertible in the middle of the car chase. Jack manages to drive without hands and without looking in front of him. After Al Leong gets killed by an errant ice cream cone embedding in the back of his skull, Danny realizes that he is in the middle of Jack Slater 4. The car chase continues towards downtown and into the LA River and several other locations I recognize from Grand Theft Auto 5. Until, through the magic of movie making, the chase continues halfway across the city and ends in a game of chicken between Jack's convertible and a black Toyota Privia. The Privia yields to Jack and winds up careening into a possible Victoria's Secret fashion shoot as the driver catches fire and has to put himself out in a fountain as women in lingerie run in terror. Danny tries to convince Jack that they're in a movie as Jack takes him to the precinct. At the precinct, Danny meets Detective John Practice, whom he recognizes as F. Murray Abraham, more specifically in his role in Amadeus, so he presumes he's the bad guy. Jack has to go to the captain's office and get his ass chewed out, but Danny tries his hardest to tell them that they're in a movie by telling them all the information he knows about them because he's seen all the Jack Slater movies a bunch of times, including the fact Jack and the captain are best friends. He also tries to point out that there's a cartoon cat that's a detective and that proves they're in a movie, but Jack and the captain ignore him. He realizes that he knows an awful lot about their lives, so they interrogate him a little bit, and then the chief tells Slater that Danny is his new partner. Jack tells Danny, okay.
My favorite part about the interrogation scene here is that once he gives him an answer that satisfies like what the movie script would say, they stop the interrogation. Like he goes, I fell off the bridge and landed in the back of the car. And the chief goes, well, that's good. Well, you know what? They just stop pestering him.
I think there's an issue with the cartoon cat. we see him get paired up with one of the female officers, and he grabs her butt, and Jack mentions that he's been suspended for only a month. So I think we're led to believe that he was suspended for some sexual allegations. So even the cartoon cat is problematic.
But he's also the best damn policeman on the force.
He's the best damn detective they have.
It's such a well-delivered line.
Jack tells Danny that he's got one chance to prove that they're in a movie, so Danny takes him to a video store. He goes looking for the Arnold Schwarzenegger movies, but when he sees a T2 advertisement, it's Sylvester Stallone as the Terminator. Pretty excellent call out to the fact that Stallone was considered for the role at one point. Essentially, Arnold does not exist in this world because Jack Slater does. Danny also points out a few other things, including everyone's phone number starts with 555, and all the women in the store and around it are impossibly attractive, including Andrea Everhart as the video store clerk. As a last gasp, Danny then says he could take Jack to the house that his second cousin Frankie was tortured. So they go driving in the Hollywood Hills until they come across the house and they go knock on the door. Benedict, wearing sunglasses, answers the door and Danny recognizes him, saying it's the guy with the glass eye that he saw in the movie. When Jack asks him to remove his glasses, Benedict tells him no and whistles for a team of very well-trained guard dogs, and he tells Jack to leave or he'll snap his fingers to make the dogs attack. When Jack refuses...
I'm sorry, but when he snaps his fingers about the well-trained dogs and it turns around and they're doing a pyramid, it did make me laugh out loud.
When Jack refuses, Benedict relents, shows him his glass eye, which is a different pattern than what Danny said it would be. But as Jack and Danny leave, Benedict overhears Danny talk about details regarding the interrogation of Frankie and is suspicious. So they go to Jack's ex-wife's house, and Danny tries to tell him that she's not home because she wasn't in the credits. But the door opens, and it's Jack's daughter, Whitney. She answers the door and kisses Danny right on the lips. Apparently, Whitney was waiting for some guy that she was supposed to kiss as some sort of sorority initiation. Then she goes to take a shower, and Danny sees a whole bunch of cash. Jack explains that it's counterfeit from an old case and burns weird color smoke when it burns.
And he also tried to pay his alimony with it.
Yeah. And Jack sees a picture of his son and gets real emo and leaves. In the car, he has some flashbacks to Jack Slater 3 when his son falls off the roof. Back at the house, someone knocks at the door and they think it's the frat kid Whitney is supposed to kiss, but it's actually Benedict with a bunch of goons. Benedict tells one of his goons to take Whitney into the back room and shut her up, then interrogates Danny. He's specifically interested in how Danny happens to know so much about him, including the conversation with Vivaldi and the eye he was wearing that day. So he starts going through Danny's wallet and comes across the ticket, and Danny tries to preoccupy him. So he gives him some lies and tells him that there's a bunch of money in the desk. They should just take it and leave him and Whitney alone. One of the goons grabs the wad of cash and gives it to Benedict. Benedict is suspicious, tells the goon to burn it. One of my favorite little mini jokes in this movie is the fact that everything thrown at this one goon he can't catch.
He makes a very upset sigh. Aww.
It's the cash and the gun, right?
Yes. Yeah.
So Benedict is suspicious, tells the goon to burn it, and when he does, it burns red smoke out the chimney, which Slater happens to see as he pulls up in the driveway. In the back room, Whitney gets slapped around a little bit, but then the tables turn on the goon, and she kicks him in the nuts, tossing him into the wall. She then kills him by snapping his neck and takes his gun. So Whitney comes out of the bedroom and aims at Benedict and tells him to freeze, and then there's a knock at the door, and the distraction allows one of the goons to knock the gun out of Whitney's hand. The goons answer it, and it's the guy that she was supposed to kiss, but then Slater comes down from the skylight and starts kicking everyone's asses. A shootout ensues, with a lot of shots coming from the goons without hitting much. Meanwhile, Slater continues to kill each one of them one by one while spouting sick one-liners. Slater does get hit once with a shotgun, but he kills the guy and reveals that he was wearing a bulletproof vest the entire time. Benedict makes his getaway, and Jack says that he needs to, quote-unquote, catch the red eye, referring to Benedict's red eye, and then does some parkour down the hillside in order to head off the car at the bottom of the hill. Danny finds a bicycle and follows after the car, not wanting to miss any of the action.
I think he messed up his line there, right?
You think?
Because he goes, I'm in an action movie. And I'm missing all the action. So it sounds like he kind of flubbed it. And
maybe.
And maybe that was one of the better takes. But it just seemed a little unnatural.
Sure. It is a little weird because he kind of starts and stops a little bit.
Yeah, it's like a stutter almost.
Yeah. Once the car gets to the bottom of the hill, Slater unloads his handgun at the car, so Benedict advises his driver to go back up the hill. As he does, Danny sees the car coming towards him and decides to play chicken with the car in his little pink bike. But halfway through, he realizes that he's the comic relief in this movie, and there are no rules saying that the comic relief can't die. So he veers off and winds up going up a ramp, passing the moon a la E.T., and crash lands after riding on some roofs. Jack picks him up and tells him he did good, and they head back to the house, but Danny tells Jack that Benedict now has the magic ticket. They go back to the house, and the cops show up and they start taking statements. Skeezy, the guy that Whitney was supposed to kiss, mentions to Slater that he got the license plate on the guy with the quote-unquote missing eye. They realize that Benedict left his glass eye behind, and it's actually a bomb that one of the beat cops triggers, and it explodes. Back at the precinct, Jack and Danny get unintelligibly yelled at by the chief while they still have smoke and soot covering them from the explosion, until the chief tells Jack that he's fired.
I think this is one of my favorite bits, is just how good this back and forth was to parody. I'm assuming it was, like Lethal Weapon and all that.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, just the little things in the background, like them still fixing the glass from when it broke, and when the all the jokes that are being made as he's leaving, and sort of like instead of doing the sad cop walkout, it's, I don't know, this whole bit inside, anytime they were inside the police station, was always great.
Mm-hmm. According to the closed captioning, they stuck a cocksucker in there.
He says cocksucker, yes.
That was a good part we missed out in the ex-wife's house. Is when Danny obviously writes a curse, like probably the F word, on the thing and tells him to say it.
Mm-hmm.
And he's like, I'm not going to say it. He's like, no, because you can't say it. It's PG-13.
Right.
At first, I thought it was going to be Hasta la Vista.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's what I thought. The joke was going to be something like that too. Yeah.
Yeah. Just another catchphrase. It's very clever. That's a clever move, right?
Yeah.
I'm not going to say that. You can't say it.
So Jack goes to pack up his things, and Practice tries to cheer him up, telling him to do detail at the funeral with him. He's going to set up Torelli, but Jack says no and cleans out his desk as the entire precinct watches. Meanwhile, Benedict looks over the ticket and realizes that it's magic and opens up a portal to somewhere he's not sure about. Maybe the Twilight Zone.
Jack, that plays in the background, right?
Yeah. Jack takes Danny to his really sad apartment and winds up killing a guy hiding in the closet, because there's always a guy in his closet. And Jack lays it all on the line, telling Danny that he fakes the calls from his ex-wife to make himself less lonely to everyone around him. It's all pretty sad, but the mood is lightened when we find out that the funeral is for a guy named Fart, which is pretty good.
Yeah.
Is it Tony the Fart?
Something like that.
Yeah, that's pretty good.
Yeah,
I didn't pick up on that until this viewing.
I think my favorite part of that, which I remember from other times I've seen it, is when Practice says, he's such a tough guy, but I could never sneak up on you.
Yeah. Arnold calls him a flatulent guy.
Yeah. Yeah. So on the way over the funeral, Jack and Danny work out that Vivaldi has planted a chemical bomb in the corpse in order to kill Torelli and his crew. They get to the hotel where the funeral is taking place on the roof in gaudy fashion. At the funeral, Vivaldi makes nice with Torelli and tells Benedict to move along with the plan. Jack meets up with Practice and he tells him what they figured out, so Practice tells him to come up to the side entrance at the hotel and they'll sneak in. But it's a ruse, and Practice turns out that he's working with Vivaldi, and there was no side entrance after all. He starts to monologue, and Danny comes up behind him with one of the many guns from Jack's glove compartment. Then Practice just takes the gun right out of Danny's hand and tells Danny to handcuff himself to a pipe. But then Danny realizes he still has the key from the first act in his pocket, so he uncuffs himself and catches Practice monologuing again. Then Vivaldi catches Danny monologuing and pulls out a gun on Danny. This is one of the scenes where they probably could have cut a bunch of time out of.
Yeah.
Vivaldi leaves the funeral, telling Benedict to stay behind and make sure everything goes to plan. Practice goes to shoot Slater, but the cartoon cat detective, voiced by Danny DeVito, saves the day and shoots Practice. So Jack heads to the funeral and tells Danny to get a crane from a neighboring high-rise over to the roof in 2 minutes without much instruction on how to do that.
And if you take, going back to the cartoon cat part, if you take all the context clues from the other scenes the cartoon cat was in, you make it seem like Jack may have covered up his sexual harassment.
Maybe. I wouldn't doubt it.
Because it comes back, cat goes, "Yeah, you've done a lot for me, bud," or whatever he says.
So what you're saying, Mark, is a cab.
A cab, exactly.
All cartoon cops are bastards.
Good.
That's still a cab, I suppose.
Yeah.
I think you have to add an extra C in there.
Just one of them silent when you're saying it.
Yeah. Danny goes to the construction site waving a gun, scaring everyone off, leaving him to operate the crane by himself. At the funeral, Jack makes a big scene saying the man in the casket is still alive, so he grabs the body and takes it away, and everyone thinks he's stealing the body, so they all pull guns on him, and he throws the body off the side and onto the crane hook. All the guests open fire on Jack until he has to jump off the side of the building and lands on a glass elevator that is on the outside of the building. For some reason, a helicopter with guns on it has clearance to fly over a major metropolitan area and goes to shoot at Jack, but he ducks and the door opens and shoots a whole bunch of goons. Then Danny
hired goons.
Hired goons.
Hired goons.
Then Danny swings the crane over and it clips the propeller, and the helicopter loses control and crashes. But then the elevator starts to give way due to the damage it took, and Jack goes free falling but manages to grab onto Fart on the crane. Eventually,
What a great sentence.
Eventually, Danny operates the crane to just over the La Brea tar pits, and both Jack and the body fall into the pit, and the chemical weapon finally detonates under the tar, creating a large fart bubble before it passes. Jack manages to conveniently clean himself up with a small towel, even though he's drenched in tar, and then Whitney shows up with a huge pickup truck out of nowhere with a fresh change of clothes. Benedict goes to Vivaldi to check in after the funeral, and Benedict tells Vivaldi that the plan failed and he has had a terrible day, no thanks to Vivaldi, then shoots Vivaldi while he wades in the pool. So then, Benedict out of nowhere breaks the fourth wall to monologue to the camera in a bid to make Benedict one of the most underrated villains of film history.
Yep.
Just then, Jack comes crashing through the wall with a truck. He plans to arrest Benedict, but then he tosses Benedict into the wall, and Benedict and the butler go through the vortex into the real world. So Jack and Danny follow them through the vortex and out into the streets of New York. Benedict carjacks a taxi, and Jack follows him in a car he breaks into. They follow them into an alley, and they play another game of chicken, but Danny tries to tell Jack that it's not like the movies, he'll die, but Jack doesn't listen, kicks Danny out, and has a very realistic crash that leaves the other driver dead.
That crash was pretty jarring. I was like, even after seeing it so many times, I was like, "Ooh, shit, that looks like it really hurt."
Yeah. So they go to Nick, who was asleep the whole time and didn't see Danny in the theater, and Jack has a crisis of identity about being a fictional character and all, and they have to break it to Nick that Benedict has the magic ticket. So Danny takes Jack home, and his mom answers the door, worried sick because it's now 2 a.m. and the cops called. And then he introduces her to Jack Slater, who tries to introduce himself as Arnold Schwarzenegger, but he can't get the last name right. Meanwhile, Benedict is having a grand old time on seedy New York City streets as a prostitute tries to turn a trick, and he witnesses someone get shot over a pair of sneakers with no immediate cop response. So he decides to... Okay.
Real quick, that's a great villainous moment, right? Because like it shows that he's thinking about what he can do in this world.
Mm-hmm.
Where instead of just going on a killing spree, not knowing what the rules are, he's like no sirens, no screaming. He's looking at his watch. Like, oh, this is like, it's too good to be true kind of thing. So he's not just a brainless murderer.
Yeah.
He's adapting to his surroundings, and that's what makes him so dangerous.
Yeah. No, he's good. So he decides to test a theory and kills a guy for no reason in the street to see what would happen, and nothing does. Danny gets a good night's sleep and wakes up to see Jack and his mom getting along like a couple of single people in their 40s, and Jack realizes he likes classical music. Jack decides he wants to go to the top of the Empire State Building and then wonders if the ticket could be used in other movies, and at that very moment, Benedict is meeting with the Ripper, trying to plot the murder of Arnold Schwarzenegger. I guess they're in Jack Slater 3, but he does bring the cans of film into Jack Slater 3. That's pretty meta. Surprised it didn't collapse on itself.
Right. Yeah. It's got to be a weird... Is it almost like time cop rules in a way?
Almost, yeah.
I'm assuming that they had gotten deeper into it, right?
Yeah.
I mean, at one point, the actors do run into each other.
Mm-hmm.
So are they they're occupying the same space, but I mean, and they touch.
Yeah.
So I guess it doesn't run on time cop rules.
No, only twins do.
Which sucks because Van Damme is in this movie. That's the perfect time to do that.
Yeah. And like Van Damme sees it. It's like, oh, it's just like my movie Time Cop.
Right. They cannot touch. That's a terrible accent there. I apologize. But yeah, that would have been awesome. That would have brought that would have made this movie god if they had referenced Time Cop.
And he does a split like over the seats.
Yes. To avoid the axe being thrown. He does a split.
So Jack and Danny have been looking for Benedict for 5 hours, and they spot Benedict getting into a cab. Jack bumbles his way through traffic and rips the door off the cab, and he assaults the cabbie. Cabbie tells him the guy left, but he left his paper in the back seat. So they look at the paper and they realize that Benedict's plan is to kill Schwarzenegger, so there's no more Jack Slater movies. Everyone makes their way to the premiere, and we get Schwarzenegger as himself and a whole host of cameos, including Maria Shriver, Chris Connolly, Lisa Gibbons, Jim Belushi, Jean-Claude Van Damme, MC Hammer, Little Richard, among even more. The Ripper shows up just ahead of Tom Noonan, who plays the Ripper and makes his way into the premiere, and he winds up killing Tom Noonan's agent in the process. And Jack and Danny sneak in based on the fact that Jack looks just like Schwarzenegger, and Jack goes to get close to Arnold in order to stop any sort of murder attempt. Danny, meanwhile, goes to another balcony and sees the Ripper. So Danny shouts to Jack in the theater about the Ripper, and as he tries to take the shot at the Ripper, Jack gets tackled by none other than Arnold Schwarzenegger. So the Ripper runs, and Arnold tries to get Jack to come up to California for work as an impersonator, and then Danny runs into the Ripper again.
Yeah, he'll make him go to some supermarket openings and things like that. It just makes Arnold look like a douchebag.
Yeah.
And Jack has a great line like, "You've brought me nothing but pain." Like, wow, that's pretty deep. Like, because without Arnold, you don't exist.
Right.
So really chew on that, right? Like, it's a real double-edged sword there. Without him, you don't exist, but with him, it's a cause for all the problems that you're facing.
Yeah.
It's a real like duality of man kind of thing.
Yeah.
Yeah, and obviously this isn't Time Cop rules because they touch
Yes.
each other and nobody dies.
Would have been great if they kissed.
I would have just loved to see like Jean-Claude Van Damme just like shake his head in disapproval. It's like, man, that would have been great.
Him stand up in the theater. That's bullshit.
If you guys have seen my great movie, you would know that there's something wrong here. When did Time Cop came out? What, 94?
Would have been around this time or just after.
I think it was before it, wasn't it? Maybe it's not. I don't remember.
94.
Okay.
So
and this came out. This was 94 too?
This was 93.
Oh,
this
shit.
is before.
Wow.
So maybe that's how Jean-Claude Van Damme got the idea.
Oh, fuck.
Although I think it was based on a comic, so it's not even.
Damn it.
We'll just go with that. It's a better story.
Yeah. That's a way better story. Like just ripping off Last Action Hero.
He's like, what if they couldn't touch?
Now, hear me out.
This all culminates into a scene on the roof of the theater with this first scene from Jack Slater 3 that we see. Jack drops his gun, the Ripper tosses Danny off the side and then throws his axe at Jack. Then Jack takes the axe and hits a power box and jumps onto a ledge, a severed power cord landing on the rain-soaked roof, electrocuting the Ripper.
I don't know how closely you looked at this, Ant. Was he wearing rubber shoes as well? Or
the Ripper? I kind of think he was.
As someone has worked in electric in the past, he was wearing everything possible to not get an electric shock.
Yeah.
Right, I think rubber gloves, rubber boots.
Yeah.
I think I did think I was like, he's wearing rubber boots, isn't he?
And rubber gloves. So he'd be the least conductive person of all time.
How funny would it have been if, because the entire time Jack is in the real world, everything he does is a fail, essentially. So he thinks he's being clever by trying to electrocute the Ripper. So he hits the power line, it falls down, and the Ripper's just kind of standing there like, fine.
That actually would have probably been a much better conclusion to that.
Right, and then like Danny does something to him or whatever.
Yeah.
But yeah, that would have been great. Like, take this, and he's just standing there. Like, that was supposed to work. But okay, yeah, I think that would have been a good little a good fail for the movie.
Yeah.
At the same time, it's a great scene getting electrocuted and gets his revenge. So it works out either way.
Yeah. You do that scene and he doesn't get electrocuted, and then Jack just shoots him.
He pulls an Indiana Jones.
So in the trivia, or actually in goofs, plot holes, spoilers, on the rooftop at the end when Ripper gets electrocuted, he's wearing rubber gloves and rubber-soled boots. Rubber doesn't conduct electricity, so it should have no effect on him.
Yeah.
So yep.
Minor oversight.
Yeah.
To an otherwise perfect movie, all right?
Yep. It's flawless otherwise.
Yeah.
Jack takes a couple of cables and goes off the side and rescues Danny, who manages to cling to a gargoyle on a neighboring building, impossible as it may seem. As they get back on the roof, Benedict shows up and starts shooting at them and monologuing as they take cover behind a water tank. Tries to shoot at them again, and the gun clicks, so Jack thinks he forgot to reload, but Benedict, in his never-ending push to be the most underrated villain in film history, just left one chamber empty for just such an occasion, and he puts a bullet in Jack's chest. It's such a badass moment.
It's so cool.
I'm not trying to root for Benedict in this movie, but he's making it very difficult not to.
I mean, again, it's Charles Dance. That's just, that's awesome. The glass eye that he switches, awesome, awesomer. And then just like the cool one-liners.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, like he is criminally underrated. Again, have you ever seen that in another movie where the bad guy intentionally leaves an empty round just to goad the villain or goad the good guy out of hiding?
Mm-hmm.
God, that is a genius move. No one's ever done that afterwards.
He's playing 4D chess.
He is, and he just outsmarts Arnold. It's fantastic.
Yeah. Danny goes for Benedict, but Benedict tosses him aside, and then Danny pretends that he broke his arm, and he cries like a little bitch. Fake crying though. So
Best
when
acting
Benedict,
he's done all movies.
yeah. So when Benedict goes in for the kill shot on Jack, Danny drop kicks him and knocks the gun away. Danny, there's two moments at the third act of this movie where Danny just throws his body at things. This being the one. It just looks hilarious to me. So when Benedict goes in for the kill shot on Danny, Benedict then moves to a knife, but Danny tosses the gun to Jack, and Jack shoots him right in the fake eye, and it blows up.
He has a great line. No sequel for you. Ah, boom. Love it.
And then the ticket floats down onto the street below, landing in front of an art house theater that is playing Ingmar Bergman's The Seventh Seal, and it makes Ian McKellen as Death come out of the screen. They put Jack in the back of the ambulance, but Danny tells him that he needs to get Jack back to the movie where it'll just be a flesh wound. So he brandishes a gun at everyone and everybody runs away. So Danny drives the ambulance through the front of Nick's theater and tells Nick to get the movie started. Struggles to get Jack to the screen, but without the ticket, nothing seems to be working. And then Death shows up, and Danny tells him that he can't take Jack. And Death says that he has no interest in Jack because he's not on his list. Then he tells Danny that if it were him, he'd be looking for the other half of the tickets. So Danny drop kicks the ticket box again. And the second time
I was trying to think, what's the second time he throws himself?
He just throws himself at the ticket box in the lobby and then rummages through and finds the ticket. And it works. He gets Jack to go through to Jack Slater 4. And he drops off Jack, but not before they don't have a heart-to-heart about all the time they've had together. And everybody comes to his rescue.
And two great things here. One, he insinuates that he wants to bone his mom.
Oh, yeah.
And also the tremendous green screen behind Danny.
Oh, God. Yeah.
Yeah, he stopped saying that one sentence. Take care of your mom for me. I'd love to. Just you have so much life ahead. It's like he's just like, you just have so much life ahead of you. It's like, are you saying you want to fuck my mom?
But you know what I was thinking about? Like everything kind of wraps up in a nice little package, except for the fact that Death, the embodiment of Death, is now wandering New York City.
Yeah, it seems to be Death too.
Yeah, it's the legit Death.
Right, because he's not the fictional Death, right?
No.
Because he says he has no interest in fiction.
Correct. And he touches a cop and the cop dies on the street.
Yeah.
So he's the protagonist, the hero of this movie.
He's a very helpful character in the short amount of time that he's there.
Yeah.
Like if I were you, I'd be looking for the other half of that ticket. He didn't have to do that. He's Death.
Yeah, right. Right. Yeah. He should be like Dr. Manhattan.
Right.
It's like,
I grow tired of this.
Yeah, it's like the difference between dead and alive means nothing to me.
And was he actually in that movie? No. Right?
No.
Okay,
No. Max von Sydow was, but not that role. He was the other one. That's a fantastic movie. I haven't seen that movie in a long time.
That would have been a cool after credit scene where it's just like Ian McKellen's Death is just hanging out. Like maybe he's on top of the World Trade Center or the Empire State Building, just kind of hanging out, and there's some like douchey tourist there. He just taps him on the shoulder. Guy dies in front of his family. Everyone's screaming. It's great.
And then Death from Bogus Journey comes up, and they do the Spider-Man meme.
Yeah, like hey, you're not Death. I'm Death. No, you're. Then they play Battleship. And Ian McKellen just wipes the floor with him. Oh, man, that's the movie we need now. Fuck. How do we get in touch with this? How do we do this?
Yeah, I don't know. That'd be good. I'd like to see that.
Yeah.
But then the doctor comes to attend to Jack, and it's just a flesh wound, just like they thought it would be. And that's the end of Last Action Hero. What a fun movie. It's really a great time. I still think it could be another 20 minutes shorter. I think the middle part lags a little bit. Like the whole funeral scene is a little bit long. But no, yeah, it's so good, so underrated. This might be one of my favorite Arnold movies, to be honest with you.
He's not great at it, but he's a pretty good comedic actor. Like he can do it in short bursts. Like if you try to make it constant, I think he'll have some like downtime. But here it works because it's playing to his strong suit with more action, with comedy mixed in. Where something like Jingle All the Way, like I do love Jingle All the Way just because I enjoy regardless. But there's not a whole lot of action in it, honestly or obviously. So it really more relies on his comedic talents and.
Right.
It's not that he's bad at it. It's just it's got to be a little bit more. He can't just carry a movie based on comedy.
It's stretching him a little thin because here's more of the straight man, right?
Yes, yeah. He doesn't realize what's going on.
He doesn't realize he's being funny.
Right.
Yeah, and just plays to his strengths. It's a lot of fun. And Charles Dance, we can't say how good he is in this movie.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I don't know
MVP.
what he did. I don't know what he did in between this and Game of Thrones, but it wasn't enough.
Right, because you don't. Up until then, I didn't remember ever seeing him. When I saw Game of Thrones, I was like, oh, I have no idea who that is.
Yeah, I'm gonna look it up right now. What's Charles Dance doing in the rest of the '90s and the 2000s?
Probably some like BC stuff.
Probably a lot of
maybe
TV,
probably like a Sherlock Holmes movie.
Maybe.
They got to pump.
He
out
was
a
in
Sherlock
one of
Holmes.
the Johnny English sequels.
Oh, was he? That's unfortunate.
Hey, he's just coming off of Alien 3.
Okay, terrible.
He was kept busy, but he wasn't in anything that I would. Gosford Park, Ollie G into House, a lot of TV movies.
Oh, he was in the female Ghostbusters.
Was he? I recently watched that not too long ago. I call.
He was Harold Fillmore.
I don't remember. Yeah.
That's post Game of Thrones anyway.
Yeah. Again,
I was just looking at all the stuff he's done recently, and it's like some stuff like Victor Frankenstein and the final Underworld movie.
Oh yeah. Okay. So it's a lot of misses for him in movies.
Yeah, I mean it does seem like he's in a lot of like BBC miniseries and TV movies. Yeah,
He could also be the best part of the.
To be honest, in Godzilla King of the Monsters, not a good movie. They don't utilize him well. So I think that was just an overall miss anyway. There wasn't much Charles Dance could have done to save a movie like that. But he says "Long live the king," and again, just he was meant to say those words. Like contractually, he should say that in every movie, regardless.
It's his California, right?
Yeah, exactly. If he's in a sports movie, he's got to work for like the Kings, the Los Angeles Kings, or is it
the only sports movie he could be in?
Yeah, just anything that has the Kings in it.
Yeah.
So it's just like he gives a maybe he's like the owner.
He could be in this. He could be the coach of the Sacramento Kings or the coach of the LA Kings.
Yes.
Nothing else.
Yeah. And it's just long live the Sacramento King, and everyone just goes nuts. Yeah, that's.
I guess he could be in a LeBron James movie. Long live the King.
Because King James, obviously. Just I would make sure that he has that line. I would just throw it in there, like how they make fun of "I'll be back" in this movie. That's his "I'll be back."
We know who to call when we're remaking King Ralph, right?
King Ralph. What a weird throwback. But it's applicable, so it makes sense.
There you go. You guys got anything else to say about this movie? Or you want to get out of here?
Yeah, go watch it. It's 90s cheese, man. It's Arnold at his best and underrated.
Mark, nothing?
No, I'm good. Yeah, it's great.
Great. All right, why don't you guys plug your shit?
Okay, yeah. I'm just gonna I'll plug and I'll let Mark do the heavy lifting with it. But we have Extra Life coming up Saturday. This is the one time of the year where we kind of come to you guys hat in hand in a way, just asking that you help us out with our 24-hour stream donations for the Children's Hospital of Philadelphia. We start at 9 a.m. and then we go till 9 a.m. on Sunday. We're just going to be playing a lot of fun games. We want you to join. If you can't donate, obviously, times are tough. Spread the word. Just say, hey, these guys are doing something really nice for the Children's Hospital of Philadelphia. If you could help out, great. If not, totally understand. But we'll be streaming from 9 a.m. Saturday to 9 a.m. Sunday.
Mark?
Yeah, so finishing up with that, we're going to be doing a live session of Stranger Damies, our D&D podcast, which airs every other Wednesday. So be sure to check that out on Instagram and Twitter at Stranger Damies. And we have our gaming podcast, the Game Vault podcast, which airs every other Monday. So be sure to check that out. All socials, Game Vault Pod. Twitch.tv/Game Vault Pod is where Extra Life will be hosted this Saturday. And also where we stream 3 nights a week. We have Tom on Mondays with his retro games, Wednesday, which you probably noticed we did not do a Wednesday stream this week, but that's normally where we do multiplayer. Thursday is our co-op night, where me and someone else plays through a game cooperatively. So be sure to check us out. Like, share, subscribe, all that good stuff over at twitch.tv/Game Vault Pod. And the reason we weren't live yesterday was because on Friday, tomorrow, there'll be a special episode of Talking to Strangers. We'll be making an announcement about the show and also just doing our normal, discussion of the show up until Extra Life's long live session. So be sure to check that out. It's always a ton of fun. If you have any questions, for us at any point after hearing that podcast, feel free to send us a DM or a tweet or anything. We're always up for answering questions, or it's always fun just talking D&D, and I think talking with strangers shows that with us.
Okay, great. And we are They Call This Movie. You can find us on Spreaker and wherever you get your podcast just by searching They Call This Movie. So Spotify, iTunes, wherever you get your podcast, you will find us there. We are themaindamey.com. That's our main website where you can find articles and all of our shows on there. So that's themaindamey.com. And on all social medias, just by searching The Main Damey. So that's Twitter, Facebook, Instagram. Search The Main Damey, will pop right up. We are a part of Geek Vibes Nation. You can find them at gvnation.com and on all podcasts and all social media services by searching Geek Vibes Nation. Tons of great shows. If you're into geek stuff, there's surely a show for you. If you want to hit us up on email, send us an email and suggest a movie for us. It's themaindamey@gmail.com. We're also on TikTok. Just look for They Call This a Movie. If you have a little bit of time, you want to show some support for the show, please, I know we say this every week, but please go on to your podcast app of choice and give us a 5-star review. Really helps us out. Really helps out with the algorithm. That's going to wrap it up this week. The director of Last Action Hero is John McTiernan. So for Dan Aquino and Mark Myers, this is Anthony Delvecchio telling John McTiernan, well, you certainly made a movie, didn't you?